I think a lot of the times, like when we're really focused on a goal, we like force ourselves to say no to things.
Everybody always says you need more balance in your life, but I'll tell you what, like you never met anyone who's done something incredible in this world or who's achieved something of, great magnitude and they had a ton of balance in their life.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the On Track with Annie podcast. This podcast is all about going after what you truly want in life. Make sure before you listen to this episode to give this podcast a rating and review. It really helps us out. Today's guest is Christian Dyer. Christian Dyer is a United States rugby union player currently playing for the Houston Sabercats of Major League Rugby and the United States national team. His preferred position is the center wing or fullback. He also has a podcast of his own called The Chase. I'm excited for you guys to listen to this episode. Let's get into it. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So you are now a professional rugby player, but you were not always that way. So I want to hear a little bit of background, how you got started in the rugby sport.
Sure. So growing up, football was like primarily my sport. And then obviously that's a fall sport. So from the winter to spring to summer, I was bouncing around from soccer to basketball to baseball to everything. I even tried lacrosse one year and somebody told my dad, hey, you should bring Christian out to rugby practice. My son's playing. So he's like, hey, you want to try it? I was like, yeah, why not? And from there, that was in sixth grade. It just stuck with me. Early on, I was pretty bad at it. I mean, I didn't hit puberty till honestly freshman summer going into sophomore year. So I was always the runt out there. So physically, I wasn't, a beast. I kind of had to resort to the IQ side of the game and the skill set of the game. And that's where I started accelerating early on. And going to represent the USA when I was 16 over in England was a big eye opener for me and gave me that perspective of, hey, I could probably go play college football at a small school, or I could play internationally, represent my country and travel around the world game by game. And that's when I really realized that, continuing rugby at the next level is something I wanted to do. So instead of going to one of the military academies that my dad basically told me I was going to go to, didn't really have an option. We compromised on, all right, where can I find the best academic school paired with the most elite rugby program? And that was UC Berkeley. And 4 years later, graduated during that weird COVID year and moved down to San Diego, Olympic Center, trained for the Olympics, switched types of rugby because there's two versions. And ever since graduation, it's been professional and international nonstop.
Okay, so you said you weren't always a elite rugby player. What did you do differently in your training that allowed you to go perform at the pro level?
Yeah, I mean, from any sport from college to professional, the speed of the game is always faster and everybody out there is good. In college, I was starting to get faster and stronger and honestly better than a lot of the kids. And I let my athleticism kind of allow me to skate through. And then when I go to the next level, everybody out there is just as big, fast, and strong as you. And so you need to really figure out what part of your game you're good at and try to make that a super strength. I think that's something that people get wrong, both in sport and in life, is they're so fixated on their weaknesses and they're just trying to make those even better. When in reality, you're never picked for what you're bad at, you're picked for what you're good at. And so I identified a couple of things in my game that I excelled at. We call them X factors, and going from good to great to then world class was something I really focused on. So I think understanding who I was as both a person and as a rugby player, identifying that, working on that to make that world class. And then there's so many other nuances that you can start to tap into, whether that's extra hours of film, extra meetings with coach, more sets doing recovery rather than training, like stripping back really the layers of what it means to be a professional and elite athlete is something that I had to learn. I wish I knew that earlier, but that's just the tip of the iceberg to answer that question.
Yeah. And you said recovery, because I think a lot of people think as pro athletes, you're like literally training 24/7. It's all you're doing. Yeah. But what actually goes behind the scenes in a typical day?
Yeah. Recovery now is one of the most, it's where the majority of my energy honestly lies. You got the big pillars, you got nutrition, you got hydration, you got sleep. And if you're not knocking those down, diligently day in and day out, well, then you don't need to stress about the cold plunges or the saunas or the red light beds or the oxygen chambers, all the other modalities that I'm now utilizing on a day-to-day basis. But big rocks for me are, can I sleep 8 to 9 hours a day? Can I consume enough high quality meals, hit my macro targets, make sure I'm fueling my body with both the right amount of foods and, the right type of foods, drinking water with electrolytes throughout the day, And then, if we go even further, saunas every single day, 30, 40 minutes, cold plunges every day. I get in the red light bed every day before I gym. I'm in the hyperbaric chamber, so the oxygen chamber 2 to 3 times a week. And there's just so many other modalities that now I'm fortunate that I have at my disposal. And then we can even go into massages and there's so many things that I do, but I used to never have a recovery day. Like I used to always think if I'm not working hard, bent over or lying down, that my workouts weren't sufficient or weren't enough. But now I've realized that if I want to get to the next level and if I want to be the best that I can be, I've got to take recovery just as important and as serious as I, approach my training.
Yeah. Okay. So break down the training for me a little bit. Like in the weight room, are you focusing on like super heavy compound lifts? Are you focusing a lot on core? Like, what is
Yeah.
it kind of like?
So it's evolved. You go from high school football, where it's all how much can I bench, squat, and power
Right.
clean. Then you go to college and you have more technology that's starting to read your body and understand, your movement patterns. And so your workouts then are a little more specific and catered to your actual needs rather than this overall, training program.
Yeah.
Now, 3 years into professional sport, I train at Sports Academy here in Frisco, Texas. It is probably the most high level environment and facility I've ever been a part of. And we go through a whole movement pattern testing, understand how I'm moving from the ankle, knee, hip joints, how I produce force, how efficient I am producing force. And so now the majority of my workouts, I'm not doing super heavy compound lifts. I'm doing a ton of unilateral work. I'm doing a ton of like eccentric focus lifts.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of mobility and core involved. And so everything I'm doing in the weight room, it has to be transferable to the field. If I bench 500 pounds or if I squat 600 pounds, some insane number, that doesn't mean I can go last 80 minutes in a rugby game for 16 weeks in a year. So everything I'm doing now is functional, getting my body to to a position where I'm robust, where I'm injury resilient, I'm fit, and I'm mobile. And so it's definitely changed my approach to how I train. My body feels a lot better now than it ever has done without putting, insane amounts of weights on my back. But it's just more specific once you get to the next level.
How many coaches do you have in total?
Wow. Are we talking rugby coaches or in all
Both,
different?
like, yeah, like strength and rugby.
Yeah. I mean, in a typical, rugby setup, you'll have head coach and you'll probably have 3 or 4 assistant coaches. Then you have a doctor, then you have a PT, then you have an AT, then you have a massage therapist. Now I have a separate strength and conditioning coach and a separate, almost like a recovery coach who focuses on mobility, core, massage work, soft tissue work. I have a mental coach, a sports psychologist that I work with. And then I have a life coach that helps me with everything I'm doing both on and off the field. So, I mean, there's so many different ways that I can get better that I'm not subject matter experts in. So, that there's that saying, why guess when you can know? And so I think that's the biggest thing you can do for yourself is start incorporating other experts in this world that know something better than you do and put them in your corner.
Yeah. So when I look at rugby, I think of like team, but it sounds to
Mhm.
me like it's very individual. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. Individual approach is different. Individual skill sets are different. You find the sweet spot when all those individual arrows are all aligned, in the same way. That's when the magic happens. But it is tough sometimes to find that culture seeps in. We have a saying in Houston, culture over everything, because if everyone's not aligned on the same path with the same vision, it's like a river and it all needs to flow one way.
Has it been hard to get to that point with your team?
I think the hardest part at first was having guys from all over the world. So 13 South Africans, guys from New Zealand, guys from Europe, guys from different parts of the US, right? So everyone has different backgrounds, different upbringings. They see life a lot different than I see life. And so, of course, rugby is still the epicenter of what we're all there for.
Hmm.
But it takes buying into something, bigger and greater than yourself in order to, I guess, achieve that level of culture and the environment that you're going for. And so it all starts with belief, and, you have to have a lot of collaboration settings where you're talking about where you come from. You're talking about their upbringing. You're starting to understand the player, not just from a sport, point of view, but also as a humanistic point of view, understanding what gets them going and what drives them.
Yeah. And I feel like it's hard too, like going into the pro level, like the mentality behind it, because you're like, oh shit, this is now like my life, my career. Like, how has that mindset changed?
Yeah, I mean, at first you're always worried about getting a contract, and
Yeah.
the way you play is the way you get paid. But now, I mean, I've gotten to a point where if rugby wasn't in my life, I'm okay. I'm happy. I've got things outside of rugby, which has taken what felt like the weight of the world on me. That's kind of off of me now because there's so many other things in life that make me happy, that give me energy, that I look forward to on a day-to-day basis. But it's still my passion. It's still my dream. There's still a lot left that I feel like I can accomplish in the world of rugby. And so I'm just taking it day by day, trying to get a little bit better here and there, knowing that I'll never, reach a level of perfection that I'm going for. As long as there's progress, I'm a happy camper.
Yeah, I think it's hard with athletes because they have like that specific title. It's like football player, soccer player. And once that's gone, they're like, I don't know who I am because this is who I've
Yeah.
been my entire life.
Yeah.
So
100%.
what are some of those things that you enjoy doing outside that has allowed you to kind of feel that way?
Yeah. I mean, we spoke about it, but have my own podcast, The Chase, which is incredible. I'm getting into content creation. I'm getting prepared for the first marathon that I'm ever going to run here December 10th. And so I think when you really strip it back, you find out, what other things actually drive you, because it's not just sport at the end of the day. That may feel like what it is, but I promise you that all these other athletes that, these big time athletes, they have these side passions, these side hustles that they want to go down. It's just being vulnerable, knowing that you may not be good at them at first. And that's totally okay, right? As an athlete, you're looked at under a microscope, where every move you make is on film, and there's media and all these things that try, and sometimes it feels like they're trying to scrutinize you, but it's okay to get it wrong at first. And so I think it just takes a level of confidence and a level of humility to start exploring those other interests and passions. And you never know, you start uncovering one thing, it may lead to 10 other interests that you have.
So what are some of like your top dreams, goals, aspirations that you want to achieve? That's a hard
Yeah.
question.
I don't know if I really narrowed it down to like metrics or positions that I'll hold, but more so like I've always dreamed of the type of lifestyle that I want to have.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think when you create the lifestyle, all those other end goals, those end results are simply byproducts of the person that you want to become, what you're doing in life, the people you're surrounded with, where you're living. And so I always, think of my life as a movie, and I'm the main character, and what sort of scenes I want, to happen, or what sort of, what other characters are in that movie. And that's the way I see it.
All right. So do you focus on characters that are going to be in your movie until the end? Is that what
Yeah.
you
I
focus
mean,
on?
of course, family is number
Yeah.
one, and my best friends. Right now I'm living with my best friend in life. It was a weird moment in my career where I hurt my wrist, got injured, had a couple months off of training, so moved to Dallas to live with my best friend. So this is one chapter, one scene in the movie that I never thought would have existed. But like I said, things, happen for a reason, and sometimes opportunities come that you never knew were going to arise, but you take it day by day and you make the most out of every situation.
So do you want to eventually later on like start your own business, be kind of like in the entrepreneurial path?
Yeah, I mean, part of me would love to, represent or manage athletes from a lifestyle perspective,
Mm-hmm.
both on and off the field, brand deals, marketing, personal development. How can I help other athletes create that life they want to live, or create that brand they want to live? Part of me wants to work for a big, whether it's like a health and wellness company, and run partnerships, because for me, community and human connection is everything. So I know at some point when rugby's out of my life, I will be in sports or health and wellness in some sort of position where it's community driven, event driven, and I can, hopefully foster meaningful connections and create like experiences for other human beings.
Yeah. So when you talk about like dreaming big, because I know you're all about that with your
Yep.
podcast as well,
Yep.
how
Yep.
would you tell other people or encourage other people to do that? Because I think some people like don't like some people's brains don't work that way, where they're kind of stuck in their same ways. They don't think bigger. They don't think
Yeah.
they can do more. So like how would you get someone out of that mindset into like, I can do XYZ at a whole different level than I thought?
I think so many people, when they think about dreaming big, or they think about doing these things in life that may seem daunting, they're their own worst enemy, because they don't see a clear path. They don't think that, they're good enough. So imposter syndrome always seeps in, and is honestly a big deterrent when it comes to people dreaming big and going after what they really want. But at the end of the day, the dream only has to be seen by you. And I think most people need to understand that it doesn't matter what other people are trying to tell them about their dream. If it makes sense, if it doesn't make sense, if it's an easy path, if it's a hard path, like if it means something to you and you actually want to go for it, you have to go for it, because regret is something in life that lasts forever and you'll never be able to get it back. And there's moments in my high school career, there's moments in my college career where I wish I did more. I wish I said no to more things. I wish I said yes to more things. And I'll live with that regret the rest of my life. So how can I put myself in the position? How can I take risks? How can I wake up every day trying to get one step closer, knowing if I can look in the mirror, I can at least be proud of the efforts I put in. And I think that's going to help eliminate some of the regret that, could have been there had I not taken that approach.
Yeah. Okay. So do you feel like now, because talking about regret, I think a lot of the times, like when we're really focused on a goal, we like force ourselves to say no to things. Like we don't have that
Yeah.
balance. So do
Yeah.
you feel like now you've allowed yourself to have more of a balance where you're like, I can say yes to things without like feeling bad that I'm not like progressing on my goal in that moment?
Yeah. I think now it's like I've given myself more grace if things don't go according to plan, because I
Yeah.
know I'll be able to get right back on that track, the next day, the next week, whatever it may be. But I think people need to realize that when you're trying to do something big, or you're trying to, achieve these big goals, or these, you have these big aspirations, balance is probably not going to be in your life at that moment. And that's okay. But that's just a season or a period in your life where it's going to be pretty strict. It's going to be pretty, you're going to be on a tight leash with yourself. And that's the way you're going to get there. And then maybe you reach that goal and then you give yourself a little more balance. Everybody always says you need more balance in your life, but I'll tell you what, like, you've never met anyone who's done something incredible in this world, or who's achieved something of, great magnitude, and they had a ton of balance in their life. That just doesn't happen. And I don't care who you are, what people have to say. That's just the reality of it. Tom Brady wasn't Tom Brady because he had balance in his life. I mean, that guy's schedule was Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, football, treating his body the right way, eating, sleeping, prioritizing himself. And people think it's selfish to prioritize yourself, when in reality, it's the complete opposite. That's the biggest thing you can do for yourself, because how are you going to be at service for other people if you're not at your best every single day?
Has it been hard for some people outside of athletics to understand that?
100%. Think about relationships, right? I'm a single guy. I'm 25 years old, professional athlete. Some people are like, dude, how don't you have a girlfriend? And it's like, well, I don't compromise on my life when it comes to training and recovery and my preparation for sport. And to meet someone who just doesn't understand that, I guess that perspective is challenging. And they probably will never understand where I'm coming from. And that's okay. The right person will come into my life when it's supposed to happen. But some people don't see it the way I do. Some people think, there's no balance in my life. Some people think that I'm prioritizing different things, and to them it may seem wrong, but to me it seems right. And so I'm at a point where if they don't buy into it, that's all good. That's all on them. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm still Christian Dyer on and off the field. And so I'm going to try to be my most authentic self as I can be, but I'm still going to put my priorities first. Within reason, family and close friends will always fit within those priorities.
Yeah, and it's not something that you have to explain. Some people just aren't operating at the same wavelength, or their life just was never that way. I think as an athlete, like I always say, like once an athlete, always an athlete, especially if you're at like
100%.
a college pro level, like you understand the grind, you understand like the commitment to the time that you have to commit to make progress in the sport and in life.
Like you have, as an athlete, you have such a short window to perform and to play. And if you're going to take that for granted, and you're not going to give it everything you have during that whatever 10-year period, if you're lucky to even be able to play sport professionally for 10 years, well, then like it brings us back to that feeling of regret. You're going to look back wishing you could have did, a little bit more. Maybe you would have been able to do X, Y, and Z differently. But that's why I'm so like into it right now. But for me now, it's just a lifestyle.
Yeah.
I mean, it used to be things I had to think about every single day, getting up at the same time, getting, morning routine, how I'm recovering, how I'm approaching my training. But now I think I'm just so used to it and accustomed to it, where it's just a lifestyle. And I understand my schedule. I understand what my body needs. I understand what my mind needs. And so now I can kind of play around with my schedule a little bit, because I know exactly what I need from a weekly perspective on how to approach games, how to approach, life. And you get better the more you do it, but there's still gaps that I'm still trying to figure out on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. So how do you focus on like the daily goals? Because I know like for you, you're probably like, my main goal is to like do really well in this game or go to the Olympics or whatever the case may be. So like, how do you kind of like narrow that down into like daily goals that you set for yourself to make you feel like you're making progress?
Yeah, there's daily goals, more so weekly goals.
Okay.
Like Sunday evening, I'll get in the journal and I'll plan out my week. understand how many workouts I need to get done, how many runs I need to get done, how many recovery sessions I need to get done, people I need to call, meetings I got to attend. And just so through the week, I can check those off. Boom, 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 boom. And when I'm in season, I can wake up on game day knowing the preparation's done. I got whatever I needed to get done. And now it's time to go have fun and show off. And so that's how I'm approaching that. But on a day-to-day basis, I mean, it's the same mentality. It's get up, it's go to work, it's recover, it's repeat. I stick to a pretty consistent schedule. And I think a daily win for me is like going to bed at night knowing, I did everything I could to get a little bit better today. If there wasn't that feeling, well, tomorrow's a new day. Let's try to right that wrong. So, I mean, I've given myself grace knowing not every day is going to be amazing. And I think that's the way it should be, because we're still humans at the end of the day. We're not always going to have great days. Some days are going to be shitty. And I'll tell you what, from an athlete perspective, there's a lot of days that are shitty, whether you get chewed out in the film room or you have a bad game, but it all comes back to just, we're creatures of habit. So how can I get back into my routine, my structure, and try to get it right the next one?
Are you the type of mindset that you think like into the future and into the past, or are you pretty good at like thinking about the present moment?
I used to be a victim of always living in the past. If I had a bad game, that week was pretty dark, because I was always thinking about the mistakes I made or the opportunities that I missed. Whereas now I'm a realist. I'm pretty present minded. I mean, of course, I'm thinking in the future of things I want to do or outcomes I want to have. And like I said, envisioning that lifestyle that I want to live, but I'm pretty rooted in the day to day now. And I'm fortunate that I'm in that position. And it's about having emotional awareness, emotional maturity, being present, little things you can do is, there's mindful practices, there's meditation, which I don't meditate. I never got good at that. I didn't think it works for me, but I'm doing great. I'm in a journal every morning, writing down things I'm grateful for, who I'm grateful for, just trying to keep me grounded in who I am and appreciate the things that are good in my life and appreciate the people that have helped me along the journey. And I think working through with a sports psychologist has helped me get to that point where I'm pretty level headed.
Yeah. So when it comes to your running, I want to talk about that a little bit. Why did you get into marathon training? Because that's totally different than what you're used to.
I know. I decided to run my first marathon one day when I was going on a 4 or 5 mile run. I like to always get one in a week. And I was like, geez, I got about 2.5 months until preseason starts. It's a good window. Let's end the year on something like big. Let's do something that gets me out of my comfort zone. Let's do something that's a little daunting, that's going to challenge me and kind of push boundaries. And that's the whole thing, is like, how can I share with people that there's things in life that you can exceed? There's these limitations that we're going to put on ourselves, but I wanted to defy those odds and show that, a professional rugby player can kind of do this hybrid style of training where I'm going to go do something that's way different than any rugby training that I'm used to. And I think that the mental challenge, even more so than the physical challenge, is something that excited me and interested me so much. And so found a marathon in the city that I'm living in and gave myself about 8 weeks to prep, and it's going well. There's ups, there's downs. Running for 2 hours is weird. I mean, it just feels like it's never ending. But then you finish and you're like, holy shit, that was so rewarding. You feel great. You accomplished something. And like we said, you can go eat whatever cheat meal you want after that.
Yes. Well, I think a lot of people hate running. And I think the reason is because they're not good at it yet. Like, it's so painful at the beginning. Like, you cannot get in that rhythm. Everything hurts. So like, no wonder you hate it. It sucks.
I know.
But once you get into it, have you learned to like it more?
100%. Like, week 1 marathon training, I was running this 4 mile loop. And by like mile 2, I was like, oh geez, are we almost done? Fast forward 5-6 weeks, that 3 mile marker, 4 mile marker, I was feeling great. And so the more you do it, the better you get at it, the better your body feels. You start getting these little wins and you're like, geez, it's getting easier and it's getting easier. And I think that's when you actually start to enjoy it, is when you're feeling and you're noticing like real improvements. And I think the same goes with anything in life. Like, the more noticeable change that you can see in your life for the better, the more you want to do something. And so now it's, pushing boundaries more. How can I run faster? How can I run longer? And the more I do it, I'm seeing these improvements. And then it's like, wow, this is cool. Cause it just goes to show that anything in life, the more effort you put into it and the more consistent you are with that, you're going to grow. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast.
Especially with training, like genetics aside, but I think
Yep,
what you put in is literally exactly what you get out. Like the extra
absolutely.
hours, like it's just a byproduct of what you put in.
But it
So,
becomes like you're training for a marathon. It's not just when you lace up the shoes and you go for a run. I mean, you have to be more cognizant of what you're eating,
mhm.
what you're putting into your body, how you're hydrating, the electrolytes, your recovery, understanding I ran, just say 20 miles this week. Next week I should maybe run 23, 24.
Mhm.
Like you really have to start this. It's like building a pyramid. I mean, it's one block at a time.
Yeah. 100%. And
Yeah.
when it comes to running too, like a lot of it is just like you're with your thoughts. And I think it's like for some people, they hate it.
Yeah.
But for you, like, how do you get through the runs? Are you with a group? Do you listen to music, podcasts?
So preferably I'm with a group. Doesn't always work out that way.
Well, yeah, you're not always at the same pace.
I know. Second choice is starting with a podcast.
Okay.
And then by the end of the run, I'm resorting to like my favorite playlist to get me through it. I just ran a half marathon Saturday, forgot my headphones, and I was solo.
You're like
So
singing to
that was
yourself.
like, that was literally just me and my own thoughts. And it's good because it allows you to think about a lot of things. It's getting you reps at winning that mental battle of your body and your mind, trying to tell you to slow down or you don't need to run this far. But I think the more times you can overcome those conversations and those, little arguments in the head, the stronger you get as a person and the more confident you become as a person. But the cool thing about marathon running is nobody gives a shit. If you're running a marathon, nobody gives a shit how fast you run or how far you run. The only thing that matters is like you.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of the cool things, about marathon come into play is it's just a test to yourself. Like, can you continue to improve? Can you continue to show up every day? Can you continue to run a little bit further and a little bit further and maybe a little bit faster? And over time, you build confidence. Cause I always tell people confidence comes from doing the things that you say you're going to do. So many
Mhm.
people compromise on those goals or those programs that they're going to go out, set out to do. But I don't know. The more you can hold yourself accountable to the things that you want to do in life than things that you say you're going to do in life, that's where I think real confidence comes.
Well, yeah. And then you feel a sense of accomplishment. You're like, I
Yep.
got whatever
Yep.
else comes my way.
Yeah. And you know the feeling. You wake up the next day not doing what you say you're going to do. You're like, shit, like I feel great now. Like, why didn't I do it then?
Yeah.
So I'm always reminding myself, like mile 10, mile 11, hey, dude, you got 2 miles left. It's going to be over in whatever, 16, 18,
Yeah.
20 minutes. It's like, I start to think that, or I start to think about the feeling when it's all over, like
Mhm.
how much better I'm going to feel that I actually suffered now and I can reap the rewards later rather than hang it or, put in the flag, whatever the saying is. And then, a few hours later when I'm feeling great, I'm like, damn, I wish I didn't do that.
Yeah. And the runner's high is a real thing. When you're
Oh,
done,
it's a
like
real
you
thing.
feel so good. Like it's like
Yeah.
nothing else. Like you go
And then
home,
you
you're
kind of hit a
showering.
wall
Oh, yeah. It's like where you get exhausted.
and you're like, geez, bring me back.
You cannot lift your legs off the couch. I know the
Mm-mm.
feeling.
Mm-mm.
No, I know. And I think with a marathon too, like what you said, like it's not really about the time, even though, yes, you want to focus on that, but it's
Yeah.
more so like we just saw with the New York Marathon, like just finishing it is like the goal.
100%.
Like people are at the finish line crying. They're like, I can't believe I did that because
Because
majority of
it's a
people won't.
massive accomplishment.
Yeah,
I don't care who you are,
100%.
whether you train for it every day or you're doing it for your first time. Like that's something that is actually like really challenging for the body. And so everybody that I've met that's done one was like, dude, it was the most rewarding experience ever because it's you versus you, and you suffer for 2 hour whatever marathon world record, or you do it in 5 hours. Like at the end of the day, you still finish a race, and then it's like, wow, like I earned that.
I like that your first running race was not a 5K. It's like the full on marathon.
Yeah, no, I've never done a
Like,
half marathon. I've never ran more than 8 miles in my life.
wow.
So yeah, yeah.
That's pretty cool. All right, so I want to hear because I know you've been traveling or you have traveled in the past. What's your best travel story?
Best travel story. Um, I mean, we spent a month in South Africa,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean that was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. Going to game reserves, playing with a baby leopard, to seeing lions in the
Oh my
wild, to going
God.
to Cape Town, to I don't know what it's called, something beach where it's penguins in South Africa. I mean, that was pretty breathtaking. The food was incredible. It's cheap over there, so you live like a king off no money.
Yeah.
Sushi is fantastic, and rugby over there is so big. I mean, you're literally in a rugby country, which is a little different than playing rugby in the US. So to just be in a country that appreciates rugby to such high standards was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Debuting at Twickenham in London for the USA on July 4th was, I mean, a dream come true.
Wow.
Like I didn't even know I was playing that game until the day before. So, I mean, there's so many different memories. Each one brings with, new experiences, new memories, but I'm pretty privileged that I get to kind of go all over the world playing a sport.
Yeah, that has to be some of the best moments, like traveling with the team and being able to experience different locations.
Yeah, no,
All right.
it's pretty fun.
So advice, last question I have for you. What's your best advice for a rugby player that is maybe like at the high school level, they're not where they want to be, they want to go pro? What would you give them?
I mean, I said it to you earlier, you're never picked for what you're bad at, you're picked for
Yeah.
what you're good at. So from a young age, like started identifying those areas of your game that you're excelling at and try to make those world class. And so of course you want to work on parts of your game that aren't up to par. You of course need to focus on the core basic skills of the sport, catch, pass, fitness, tackling and whatnot. But if you're a wing and you're super fast and you're really good at scoring, put yourself in that situation a couple of times a week where it's really specific how to do that in a game. And if that's going to be where the majority of the time that you have the ball in the game in those certain moments, we'll focus on that. Don't try to do 15 drills throughout the week that you may have to experience or may do once or twice in a game. Pick the moments that you're actually getting the most contributions in the game and try to make those the best you can.
All right, guys, this next segment is going to be a tangent on food. Stay tuned. Don't exit out because it's important. Did you say you didn't eat a vegetable for a whole year?
I didn't eat a vegetable for 1 year.
So what did you eat? Honey?
Yeah, I went animal based. So I literally ate ground beef, cuts of steak, bunch of fruit, honey, raw milk when I could find it, pasture raised eggs. I mean, I literally did the entire Paul Saladino diet for a year and I felt incredible.
Okay, so did you feel like you performed better and had more energy on this diet?
I 100% had more energy. My sleep was better. I used
Digestion. Was your digestion? Because no?
Way better.
Wow. See, that's
Way
what people
better.
think is like when you cut the fiber. Well, I guess you get fiber from fruit, but when you cut the vegetables.
But vegetables are so hard to digest.
100%.
And I think that's where a lot of people's digestive issues come from, is the fact that they're eating copious amounts of veggies and they're wondering why they're bloated or they have stomach. It's like,
I like that you're getting into this. We should have talked about this more. I totally agree. So do you think greens powder then is better than eating actual vegetables? Digestion.
I take athletic greens in the morning.
Okay. Are you sponsored by them?
Excuse me?
Are you sponsored by them?
This is not sponsored by AG1. Okay. This is not.
Everything is.
But I had brain fog. I was getting headaches almost every day. My testosterone was lower. I went this way. Testosterone went up like 500 points. Brain fog essentially went completely away. Don't really have headaches anymore. And I had a different level of energy, mental clarity, and just like, I'd say vitality.
The new liver king.
Yes, the natural liver king.
Yes. So you didn't
make sure that's included.
You didn't eat anything like that, right? No raw, like weird meat.
No, I'd eat liver, but I'd cook it. But I didn't really get into the testicles or the
Thank God.
Eating just raw beef heart. But I don't know. Now I eat like, I'll add in some veggies, a little bit of broccoli, a little asparagus. That's honestly about it. I mean, the way I eat is still pretty simple. I try to just do like 1 or 2 ingredient foods. If it's in a processed bag, I'm probably not eating it unless I'm, in the airport on the go and I'm scrambling to get some calories or some protein in. I mean, it's whole, it's quality food, nutrient dense, and that's what makes me feel the best.
Now, I always tell people that, like, when you're looking at a bag of like rice cakes or something, it literally should be like whole grain brown rice, salt. Like, if you see food starch and like these weird additives, like chances are it's not natural. You shouldn't eat it. So focusing on the one ingredients, the ones that is so important.
Like, I was going to use the F word.
Why
the fuck does almond milk have 18 ingredients or something?
Oh, I know. Yeah.
It should be water and almonds.
Yeah. 100.
That's when I was like, hey, everything we're consuming is screwed up. And now, like, everything has trace amounts of glyphosate and all that Roundup and all these things in them. I mean, like, no wonder half the population in America is overweight or obese. And half the people have anxiety, depression, gut issues, hormone imbalances, anxiety. If I didn't say that, like, there's a reason for it. And at the same time that our food system in America became industrialized is the same time that all of those symptoms that I just mentioned started to rise. So, I mean, I'm no scientist, I'm no nutrition expert, but it doesn't take a
You don't
dummy
have to
to
be.
connect the
Yeah.
dots.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's now my approach to eating is clean, 1 or 2 ingredient foods. If I can get organic foods, I'm getting organic foods, especially fruits, in the vegetables that I do eat. Grass-fed cuts of meat over regular cuts of meat, and pasture-raised eggs and some good raw local honey. It's simple for me.
No, it bothers me too, because like you have all these ingredients in food. People read the label, they're like, I don't know what it is, whatever, I'll buy
Yep.
it. They go
Yep.
on medications because of that. And then it's just this
100%.
literal cycle. They're like,
It
why do
is.
I feel this way? And I'm like, guys, if you would have stick to the basics, you wouldn't have any of these problems. You wouldn't have to go to the doctor as much. Like it's all this like complete thing. And people like don't care.
No, eat better, sleep better,
Mm-hmm.
move your body more, have better social connections, laugh more, walk more, you're going to live better. It's literally as simple as that.
Yeah. And it's crazy how people don't like, they make it more complicated or they think it.
Oh my God. And the other thing that I hate is people will read a food label and they associate the amount of calories, protein, fats, and carbohydrates to the quality of the food.
Yeah.
So if it's low cal, if it's low sugar, if it's low fat, they immediately think, oh, this is good for me. If you were to just have the full fat version of something with 1/10 of the calories that was in that other variation, I'm sure that's healthier for you. And so people think a calorie is a calorie, which maybe it is in a sense of body weight management and whatnot, but it isn't in the sense of how that calorie and how those nutrients are actually going to interact with your body. And that's the level of attention I think more people need, to learn and develop, is start understanding not necessarily calories and what they're putting into their body, but where it came from, the quality of the nutrients. Is it organic? Is it grass fed? How many ingredients? Are there synthetics, processed foods, preservatives, color dyes? Like that's, I think, where all these issues are coming from.
Yeah, and two, like you could eat something that might be decent calories, but it could make you so inflamed and bloated. You're gonna look like you're 5 pounds heavier than you are just because you had that. If you had the full
100%.
fat version, you're probably not gonna gain weight and you're not gonna be inflamed. So you'll probably end up looking better and leaner anyways. So yeah.
Yep. And that's the other thing. Geez, we're literally going on all these side tangents. When it comes to working out, I think that an issue is people are working out or lifting to look a certain way. And it's so detrimental to their health rather than trying to approach it in a way of like, what's the most functional? Can I become more mobile? Can I become stronger? Can I create muscle mass and bone density that's actually going to last me a lifetime? Like, I think if you start taking this larger, I guess, point of view on things that you're doing, it'll be healthier than trying to fit this narrative, that you're trying to write in your life that's so scripted that you're trying to a T to make it like a certain way, because you can't control where muscle mass directly goes or where body fat is eliminated. Like we're so hard on ourselves to fit this image that society is trying to put on us that it's causing subsequential, whatever the word is, effects. Yeah. And no wonder mental health is such a hot topic now.
Well, and it's the comparison thing too, but literally you could eat and train the exact same way as someone else and you will look totally different. Yep. So it doesn't even make sense to kill yourself to reach like a certain physique that you see someone else have, because you're not ever going to get there. So
do the exact workout Chris Hemsworth does to look like him.
Oh, and that's what's marketed too.
Hey, if that was true, you best believe I'm doing that workout every single day.
You're like, I'm on it from 6 a.m. until 6 p.m.
That is my man crush. But
okay. Good to know.
Yeah, that him and Christian McCaffrey.
Okay. All right. I think that's a lot.
Too notable. Too okay. Yeah. I think those are reasonable.
Yeah. I'm glad you said those and not some other ones. So that's good.
Who's your woman crush?
Was Megan Fox.
Yeah, when she was Transformers 1. Not anymore.
You calling her old?
No, but she's drinking blood.
Oh, fuck. You're right.
Her and MGK doing some voodoo stuff.
Scarlett Johansson. Even though I'm naming people from movies from the past, but
love her.
Whatever. Yeah. Love her.
Fair, fair.
All right. And where can they find you on social media and your podcast?
Yeah, IG, TikTok is at Christian J. Dyer. I'm on YouTube. I think it just search in my name. The podcast is called The Chase, and that's where you can find me.
I will link it below. All right. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.